right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Brewed for Business, ADUs as a smart growth strategy here at Stellwagen Bay. Stellwagen, yeah. Our hosts tonight are myself, Marlene, and Patrick Freely. If you've been with us for a while, you might remember a few of our previous names. We've been called the South Shore RIA, the Business and Real Estate Meetup, and my personal favorite, the RIA Thing with that girl. So we've made it official. We are now Brewed for Business. Same community, same value, and a little bit more polish. A little bit about me. The co-founder of Eastern Real Estate Solutions, or Eastern RES. We specialize in creative deal structures, seller financing, subject to, lease to own, and you name it. We work with homeowners and professionals to close unconventional deals and to solve real problems. So tonight kicks off the summer of ADUs here at Brewed for Business. Accessory dwelling units are no longer a fringe idea. As of 2024, Massachusetts now mandates that every MBTA community must allow at least one ADU by right in single-family zoning. This is a game changer for planners, builders, investors, and homeowners. Tonight's panel is here to help you understand what that means. And now, how to use it to grow, invest, build, and advise in 2025. So I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Robbins. I'm a real estate attorney with the firm Crowley and Cummings. I am a real estate owner, investor. I'm a landlord. I'm on my town zoning board of appeals, and I have an accessory dwelling unit in my backyard as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Alicia Siciliano from Lord Concepts, the design builder. I also sit on Pembroke Planning Board as well as the Colony Planning Council, so get all the information before it was passed on to everyone else in the state. And avidly pushing into the ADUs as I grew up having my grandparents living with me, and my other grandparents living with my cousins. So to me, it's how it's supposed to be, having that multi-generational home. So I have some properties of my own that we develop where I try to do all multi-generational homes on those as well.
Hey everybody, I'm Tim O'Reilly. I'm the director of pre-construction at Backyard ADUs, a company that started out exclusively building ADUs, and now we're building about one house a week across Mass, Maine, and New Hampshire. So we're sort of boots on the ground, doing it every day, learn a lot.
Hi everybody, Patrick Cradley from Grand Coast Mortgage. We provide mortgage financing, creative financing and hard money for investors and developers. Also provide financing for the end user, for the consumers, your typical conventional 30-year fixed rate type of financing. So investors and developers as well as consumers, we provide all that type of financing.
So ADUs have existed for years, but now they're required by law. And we know that they've been out there. Nobody talks about them. But what's actually changed on the ground and why does it happen? So, Mike.
Yes.
What's the number one legal risk homeowners overlook?
Oh boy. I'm just going to stand and I'm going to speak up just because of the background noise. So if you can't hear me or if you want me to repeat something, please do. Number one risk for homeowners are the terrible landlord-tenant laws in Massachusetts. That would be my primary concern. But if you are going to build an ADU, let's just say it's your primary residence and you're going to put an ADU in your backyard for third-party rental, If that tenant is a professional tenant and they don't pay their rent, it's going to be a real bear evicting that tenant from your backyard. I would use a lot of non-legal remedies to address that. That is not my advice, but as a landlord, I know those remedies firsthand. But that would be the biggest concern that I would have for homeowners who are like, hey, I'm going to build an ADU or convert this space and I'm going to put in a tenant. What are my concerns? That would be my first concern.
Have you noticed any different approaches that different towns are taking?
Sure, I'll just stay up. Towns are all over the map. So the question was, are you seeing different approaches from different towns? And it is literally the Wild West. Some towns are militantly opposed to this, and they are going to try every way conceivable to diminish the possibility for people to add ADUs, whether it's a primary residence, an investment property. So my hometown of Southborough, the planning board wanted to have site plan review for all types of ADUs. So let's say you wanted to convert a basement into an ADU or an attic space. They're like, oh no, we want site plan approval for that. And thankfully the town voted them down, and so site plan review is not required at all in Southborough. Other towns are going to be more restrictive. Site plan is kind of a gray area for the town to add conditions and expenses like grading or different types of structures that they might require. And as a result, what's going to happen is you're going to have towns applying these ADU laws haphazardly. So there's going to be a patchwork. And I always say for builders, for developers, for investors, that's been the case always. So whether you wanted to build an addition, change the layout, add a deck, every building commissioner, how they view things, how they treat the property is going to be substantively different in each town. At the end of the day, the new law is there, it's in effect, and so the towns are going to have to deal with it, but how they deal with it, whether it's cooperatively or uncooperatively, is going to be really town specific.
Patrick, let's talk funding. How are homeowners paying for these goods?
So a couple different ways. So if they're already an existing homeowner and they want to build an ADU, a couple of different ways to go about it. The fastest and easiest way to go about it is simply a cash out refinance or an equity. Tapping into the equity you already have in the home. If you don't have enough equity, there are construction loan financing options available as well. But when you take out a construction loan, you have multiple partners. You're partnering with the bank, the lender that's issuing the funds, but you're also partnering with the general contractor. So the contractor typically is good at what they do, building and fixing property. They're not necessarily so good at the paper. So the lender is going to require a lot of paperwork from that contractor as well before you can get to the closing table. Not just the plans and specs, they're going to want to see insurance coverage, which the homeowner should want as well. But a bank is also going to want to see that that contractor has a history of completing lifetime projects. They're going to want to see references from other homeowners that that contractor has completed projects for. So the way around that without getting into as much paperwork that a construction loan involves is if you have equity in the home, do a cash out refinance to extract that equity, and now you're working directly with the contractor, or take out a home equity line of credit, and again, you're working directly with the contractor without the bank's approval of that construction budget plans and specs.
Now, what if you were to purchase a home with an ADU? Is the funding different? What kind of funding would you
Yes
be
and
looking
no.
at?
So we've got a room full of mostly investors, so I'm going to come back to investors in just a second. So if you're an owner-occupied individual, if you're buying a home that has an ADU, there are some variances. So if you're taking out FHA financing, Federal Housing Administration, FHA loan only allows a single-family home to have an ADU. And you can use rental income from that ADU to help you qualify. So it looks and feels similar to a two-family in that sense. Fannie Mae follows the same rules. It's a single family with an ADU. If you want to use that rental income to qualify. However, there's a quirk there with Freddie Mac. So a lot of people talk about conventional financing and they sort of lump Fannie and Freddie into the same category. But here's one of the variances where Freddie is different. Freddie Mac will actually allow you to purchase a three-family with an ADU. So essentially, it looks and feels like a four-unit property, but it's actually 3 legal units plus an ADU, and you can use that rental income to qualify. Now, when we talk about investors, there's nothing necessarily prohibiting an investor from buying a property that has an ADU. However, the underwriting guidelines are such that the investor is only going to be able to use the rental income from the primary home. And even though you have 2 units and you're going to rent both of them out, the underwriter is only going to take the rental income from the main home, the larger of the 2 units, and use that to help you qualify and offset that mortgage. So again, an investor can buy a property that has an ADU, but on paper, to qualify, you're not really going to have as much cash flow as you think you're going to have.
Thank you. Now, this is a question for the group. Are you guys seeing ADUs being used for rental income, aging parents, adult children, or all of the above? Which one is the trend?
I think all of the above. I've gotten kind of a wide range all over. Most, I'd say the 50% at least is old and young family living together, whether one's moving into the adults are moving in to the smaller or vice versa. Depends on how many kids are involved.
We built about 70 housing units since 2019 and 2 of them rentals. I think if we were pre-COVID prices and pre-COVID rates, we'd have a lot more investors, but the landscape has obviously changed. We're not doing converting attics or basements, which I think, I don't know, price point wise, maybe more that investor would get that unit out.
What about you two?
Well, for me, I think a lot of landlords that have had illegal basement units, for example, that's going to be the most common. Let's say you've got a 2-family with a bonus apartment in the basement. Those are going to be probably the lowest hanging fruit because that's one of the motivators for the state is they want that illegal basement that might have, a hot plate, a microwave that doesn't have a second form of egress. I'm seeing more conversions of those. I'm getting calls about how to make those illegal units legal. And so I'm seeing more of that, which is one of the big reasons where the state was a proponent of kind of pushing those illegal units, bring them into the light, get them up to code from the safety perspective. And then from a resale ability for an investor, now it's a 2-family house with a legal ADU. So now that price point where, you have investors like me who liked bonus apartments, because you're not, let's just say it's a 2 with a bonus apartment, you're getting a 3, but you're paying it a 2+ price. And so I'm like, I'll get that rental income, but now that kind of cleans that up, and now you can market and sell that property at a higher price point, theoretically, because now that illegal unit is now legal.
So I want to throw out one piece of clarification that kind of dovetails off of that. From a lending perspective, there is a difference between an in-law unit and an ADU. So a lot of people will call, an in-law unit, we'll say a raised ranch with a finished basement that you put, grandma or whoever in there to live. And the only way to get to that in-law unit is by walking through the main house. Okay? That's not an ADU. The lending requirements dictate that an ADU have its own separate means of egress. the only way to get to the outside is by traveling through the main part of the house. It is not an ADU, and you're not going to be able to use rental income to help you qualify for that. The other requirements does have to have a full bath, does have to have a full kitchen, and one of the variances between Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, one requires a separate bedroom, the other one doesn't. So you can have sort of a quasi-studio apartment without a separate bedroom and still call it an ADU. Yeah, good.
Do you need two separate egresses in that situation, or can you only have one going outside and one going to the house?
The way the lending guidelines are written, it's a little bit vague. So mortgage guidelines are typically slow to keep up with all the rest of the world. It needs to have at least one, is the way that the guidelines are written. Preferably, you should have two, but they want to say at least one.
One that doesn't go through the main house.
Exactly, one that goes straight to outside.
Can the second one go through
Yep.
the main house?
Yep. But you have to have at least one means to go directly to the outside without traveling through the main house.
And can that be a bulkhead?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Typically, I've seen that that's accepted. And just from 10,000 feet, if there's a basement unit that was an in-law, but the main entrance is through the house, but the second egress was. It's an
I haven't
access
come
point.
across it yet.
Okay.
But when I do, I'll give you a call.
All right. All right.
I didn't get your question.
Yeah.
Don't confuse lending laws and things like that with the building code.
Correct.
Yeah.
The building code requires two means of egress per dwelling unit, whether it's a primary or an accessory. Bulkheads don't count.
They don't count for primary for the second form of egress as a bulkhead. No.
And an egress window.
So this is where in lending, the appraiser is going to defer to the town zone. So by default, if it doesn't have that second means of egress,
You'll default to the building code, not
Yeah.
the zone.
or the building code, yes.
All right, so my next question was for Patrick. I was going to ask you to walk us through the appraisal process when an ADU is involved.
So again, there are some variances depending on the type of financing. So if it is a correctly constructed full-blown ADU, it will be appraised as a single family and given credit for the extra square footage. It's not going to be appraised as a two-family. It's going to be appraised as a single family, but you're going to have the extra value from the additional square footage. But of course, the appraiser is going to lean back on the building code, it's sort of their CYA statement, make sure everything is, and the good appraisers are going to go to town hall, go to the building department, pull the jacket, and define it in the report as to whether or not it meets the building code requirements. Did I answer that question okay?
Yeah. You.
Steve?
Have you ever seen anybody appraise these as condominiums rather than a single family with an ADU?
Well, we'll step on legal language here, but condominium is not a physical description. A condominium is a legal description. So if there are no condo documents recorded, it is not a condominium.
So if there's condominium docs recorded, have you seen anybody appraise these as condominiums?
Has not crossed my desk yet.
Me neither.
What are we working on, Steve? Are we going to talk later?
That's one of the big things that's going on, is whether these will be able to be
By
sold
the
as
state
condos
law,
or not.
it says they can't be.
Cannot.
Who said that?
The
state
state
law.
law says it cannot be condoized.
So that makes a separation of.
You can't, because they don't want you to subdivide your own lot.
You can't subdivide
So
the
you
lot.
can't condoize it, because now you could have two separate owners by making it a condo, and that breaks the ADU law.
State law allows for two separate owners
not with the ADU law.
Not with the ADU.
It's specifically called out in the law.
Yep.
You don't have to own or occupy, but you can own them separate. There are some towns that have sort of, their bar is set higher than the state, where they're not even calling it an accessory dwelling. They're allowing 2 single-family homes on the lot. And that is an example where, by definition, it's 2 single families. They could be called, you could write up condo docs and own them separately. But that's,
And that is an appraisal and lending nightmare. Please don't do that.
So why would Situate and Duxbury be defending the situation that they believe condo is going to happen, so they are making it so you can't have 2 separate owners?
They're just trying to scare people.
it's a scary thing.
It's a scare tactic.
Because the law clearly states it.
It's unambiguous.
Yeah, it's very clear by the state. The state was trying to take away the rights of towns that were putting all of these extra guidelines in there to cause problems for people not to be able to build them. So they're calling it a protected use, which I don't. Do you see that very often? I don't see that.
The PADU,
Like a protected use under the
protected
state.
ADU.
So therefore, by making it protected, now they're saying these are the laws and you have to abide by it. And then they came out with those extra guidelines the end of January prior to the ADU law coming live, because so many towns were putting too many restrictions on. So they were like, the state was like, this isn't what it was meant for. So no, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. And kind of blew up what a lot of towns had already tried to put on the books. Now made them obsolete, even what they just did in the last 6 months. So the state wants the ADUs more than anything.
That's it. It was under Mass 40B housing, like the statute. So think about affordable housing units. So it's under that premise. And it's also under, it's akin to what's called the Dover Amendment, which allows for development of basically religious and school properties without town oversight. So it's circumventing a lot of town oversight. It's the intention.
We're going to permit one there next month, so I'll let you know how it goes. How many more gray hairs that had. Duxbury.
Yeah, like it.
Yeah. You don't want to catch up.
Yeah.
That would be good, be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. It's got to be under the state rules, and they have to accept it. I may pick up the phone and call Mike. So we'll see what happens.
So Tim, how long does it take from completion from the consultation to completion to build an ADU?
Yeah, so we uniquely, versus you guys, we're building modularly. So we're doing like an upfront design build, building it off-site, and then finishing it with our team. So we're completing, like I said, an ADU a week. That cycle, though, typically is about 10 months. If the town stonewalls you, if we have conservation, health department, it takes longer up front. So it's more around 12 months.
Now, in the state of Massachusetts, what town are you seeing yourself building the most ADUs?
Yeah, it's interesting. Last week, our sales inquiries just hit the most we've ever had. We're
Because of our event.
exactly. Facebook, Instagram. That was between Mass and Maine. We built in Mass, Maine, New Hampshire. We were founded in Mass. We've got the most volume here overall. I think it speaks to our market more so than Maine. Metro West is just exploding. The same house you put on a foundation in Metro West, put it on a foundation in Western Mass, and it's worth less. And our supply isn't there, and the need is only growing. So back to the other question, it's 95% multi-generational living, adult children moving back. Where are they going to live? Pick your apartment and your rent and whatever it is. Can we finance an option in the backyard at a comparable or a less rate? And that's what we're doing. And aging parents as well. Where can I live that suits me now and will suit me in 5 or 10 years versus assisted living or elsewhere? And what are those costs?
And Alicia, you're more local. So where are you seeing more ADUs?
All over the Central, right? I don't go north of the split anymore. And I try to stay off Cape. So I'm seeing a lot more in Hanover, Norwell, Weymouth, because Weymouth was a like outlaw town where they didn't allow in-laws or anything before. So I'm getting a lot of calls from there.
Okay. And also for you, how do you design an ADU for both form and function?
Form and function. Well, first is where can I put it on the property, and then how we can have access. So if it's in the house or attached versus if it's detached. For so many years, so many towns only allowed attached. So it's nice to be able to do some retreat ones in clearings and things in people's larger properties are nice.
Okay.
We designed one in Norwell on 3 acres, where they had plenty of space and a lot of conservation land, but they had a nice clearing that was out of the 100-foot buffer. So we're able to fit in a really large 900 square foot with about 900 square foot of covered porch and a nice 1,100 square foot garage.
Wow. So do
You
you
know, it's a problem, right? Hey, but it's still 900 square feet of living space.
do you have any tips for cost versus resale value?
So some of the, like a big driving cost is your foundation. So some that we have gotten at a better price point, we've done the helical piles with no garage, maybe a carport or something. We've designed some that way. And included the utilities, you know, your hot water heater, doing an indirect to minimize the amount of floor space we're using for that. But doing them on the helical piles, we're saving a ton versus doing it with a full foundation.
Do you see anything in pre-existing non-conforming structures?
So yes. So it comes down to what the town regulations are for those pre-existing non-conforming. And it depends on that zoning board, how well they're gonna push back on it. But if you're able to set it within the setbacks that are conforming, if you're doing it detached, those ones are having less problems than if you're non-conforming with the new structure.
So do you see it with existing accessory buildings that meet that zone?
So if it's a pre-existing non-conforming accessory building, so let's just say that garage that you want to convert is a pre-existing structure, the towns cannot require a variance for that. Because now you're just changing the use of that structure from a garage to an ADU, and so you don't need to apply for a variance in that specific situation.
I want to put a second floor on.
So that's the problem.
Right.
Because they might not allow you to change. So for my ADU, I couldn't even put a dormer on my barn because it would have changed the layout for my ADU and I would have required a variance for that. So
Some towns won't even allow you to add a window on those non-conforming, like anything that's outside the setback, you can't add another window or anything on that side. So it depends on the town.
If you did the work prior to determining you were going to create an ADU, would that benefit you?
I had to do like the standing wall game to convert the space, you know, like, oh no.
Just upgrading my garage.
Yeah,
Bonus.
just add some windows now and then.
And then you can go back with the structure. No.
Gotta love those games.
Yes.
You talked about where on the property you put it. Can you add a driveway?
Some towns have maximum coverage or wall coverage or impervious surface. It all depends.
Yeah, you beat me to impervious surface.
Yeah, so it really depends on what the town has listed. So like Duxbury, they have like I think it's 15% max lot coverage, so that's not a lot. So when you start adding that up and they, you know, depending on where you are, considered to wetlands, how much of that they consider towards driveway. And one we did in Kingston, we had to take out all their walkways.
Oh, interesting.
In order to use that lot coverage, so they would come through the walkways.
Some towns will let you use permeable like pavers as an offset. You know, it's town dependent.
So you're adding on this.
Yeah, no, go.
It's like your DPW. Are we doing a new curb cut? What are the rules in that district, and what are they going to do?
So does that vary by town?
Correct, and then the lot coverage too is by district in your town. So like that's the rules of the game. Is, you know, your town, your rules, but then your district within your properties within. And you guys get ahead of that stuff early because it impacts costs. That's the most popular question. It's also the hardest to answer.
Can you repeat it?
Driveway.
What's the average price per square?
Yeah, so the easiest way to price, the hardest thing, right, is how do you get an apples to apples comparison? The apples to apples comparison is foundation up. Great, we can do that all day because we have 4 different sites and foundation down is different. Foundation up, we're in like the mid 200s. Then you add in the foundation, the utilities, everything else. We're more like 350, 400. You can stretch that lower. Yeah, I was talking to you guys earlier, and it's like before the Affordable Homes Act, where the playing field was level, it was all over the place. It was like yours was 625, and yours was 820, and you could do 1,000. Everyone in our pipeline right now in Massachusetts is trying to do 900 square feet, as much as they can with their budget being the limiting factor versus going to town. On average, putting the design out on 800 square feet is the comfortable 2-bedroom, 1-bath. 900 square feet, investors are trying to get the 2-bedroom, 2-bath. The aging in place folks want more storage and more accessible kitchen and bath. So 8 to 900.
Last question. Financing. Can you walk me through financing for I'm a homeowner and I want to sell. I want to build an ADU and I'm going to move into it, right? And I'm going to live in the house for my kids. Are you going to finance it? Are you looking directly to just the units to finance, or are you going to take the whole property as a whole versus just the income that would be generated from the ADU?
So in that example, are the adult children buying the property from you?
It's a rental. Just say it's a rental. No, I'm going to rent it. I'm going to rent the ADU. I'm going to give the house to my kids. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to give them the rental income.
So if the kids are buying the property from you,
Gifting it.
you're giving it to them.
Indirectly, yes. I'm selling it.
So you're selling it to them. They can absolutely use the rental income from the ADU to help them qualify for financing. Yes, absolutely.
But is the income from the ADU, is that how you're going to underwrite the loan? Is it just
Yeah.
the rental income from the ADU
So
from the whole house?
say from the ADU, because the way the financing rules work is it's an owner-occupied property. The owner-occupant is going to live in the main house, the larger unit. We can use rental income from the smaller unit, the ADU, to help them qualify. So the buyer can't tell me that they're going to move into the 800 unit or 800 square foot smaller unit and rent out the 3,000 square foot house for a higher rental income. It's just not going to pass an underwriting stamp. It just makes sense. Does that answer the question?
So I know most people are here about investments, but there is, if anybody on mass.gov, there is in the ADU page where they're explaining it, there's a small thing that says, this link will help people for over 60. So there's a link they can go to, and it's, most people are getting about $50,000, and you have to be over 60 or be disabled. So somebody that lives with you is disabled. The person that owns the house has to be 60. And they can get a 0% financing deferred payment loan of $50,000. So it's meant to help for that older Asian community stay in their homes by making that ADU. So that way, if they can pull out a little equity, so it's not killing them financially, to put the ADU in, where maybe now they can grow old in that house or the ADU and rent out the main house to cover their expenses to be able to stay there. Yeah.
We don't want people back into their budget and then go get the 50 grand to do the porch and all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
We've got to pause right here. Michael Robbins, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have to get going.
Yeah, I'm sorry I have to leave earlier. My wife and I are a foster family, and we have a new foster child that was delivered.
So are you going to build them an ADU?
I'm gonna go live in it. But if you need any of my contact information, there's a lot of questions, a lot of legal questions that come up. Again, my name is Mike Robbins. Don't hesitate to reach out and wish me luck. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Good to see you, Tim. I'll see you soon.
Okay, so for the rest of you guys, what is the biggest mid-project that you have seen so far, and how did you fix it?
So the biggest problem with ADU, the biggest oops.
Biggest oops.
So this is burned into my memory. I'm never going to forget this transaction. It just happened. So client was rehabbing a property, did a spectacular job, and told me all along that once the work is done, he wants to refinance this two-family. Only it's not a two-family. It's a single-family with an ADU. It looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It looks like a two-unit property, but it's not. The building department of the town, it's a single-family with an ADU. The type of financing program we were using was something called the DSCR, Debt Service Coverage Ratio, which is a loan program that uses only the rental income from the subject property to qualify. So the rental income from the subject property has to be equal to or greater than the mortgage payments, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So, all sounds great, but the problem is, single family with an ADU, we cannot use the rental income from the ADU from an investor to qualify for it. So he thought he was getting credit for 2 units rental income to qualify for the financing. Once we get the appraisal back and verified everything with town hall, it wasn't a two-family, it's a single family with an ADU. He had a little bit more than half the income he thought he was going to have to qualify, and now he doesn't qualify. So if walks like a duck, talks like a duck, go down to town hall, go down to the building department, make sure it's actually a duck before you buy it.
Did he figure out a solution for that?
We're still working on it. And he already owns the property. He's already sunk a ton of money into rehabbing it. So we're working, giving him advice. He's working with town hall to rectify the situation, get it reclassified on the books as a two-family. So we're close, but he's literally fighting City Hall.
We have a question over here.
Do you see that changing at all now that the return is popular?
No. I think that the fact that lenders will allow you to use rental income from an ADU in and of itself is leaps and bounds above. So before this new regulation came into play, you just couldn't use rental income from anyone. Back then, it weren't called ADUs or these around here, they're called in-laws. You couldn't use that rental income point blank, no.
That wasn't allowed use.
That
wasn't allowed use.
Yeah. So the fact that now the ADUs are allowed use and you can use rental income, I think that in and of itself is leaps and bounds. Now, when you get into investors, that is a trickier situation, and that's why I think some of those Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, the government-sponsored entities are more conservative with what they're going to allow you to use. I'd love to say yes. I'll push to make it a yes, but if it was up to me.
How you guys?
The biggest though is like when your client's not there at the end. We're building for a lot of older folks. You get this project, and then it's like an exchange. That's where I think I'm sitting here. That's the worst. Building wise, everything comes up. Unforeseen things underground. Recently we were, there's a plumbing inspector on the town's website. And in theory, you can call him, but we've been here for 3 weeks to try to get someone moved in. It's everything. So it's all fixed price budget so that they don't wander their experience. So we put the onus on ourselves to do our due diligence and our homework so that we hopefully don't end up in bad places.
Yeah, I spend a ton of time on prep work, getting it ready and making sure like all our utilities and everything's in a row, finding people's wells ahead of time for them and making sure it's functioning. So I try to cut out all of those problems ahead of time. You know, every once in a while, I found that somebody used an old side yard of these people's house for a dumping pit for the raised branches they built all throughout Weymouth. That was like the end of the road. They just kept piling all the debris there. We start digging and found, 6 feet of stumps.
You're triggering my memory. We excavated, I picked up the phone. Like, yeah, what's going on? He's like, hey, we found a tombstone in the backyard. We're like, who are you supposed to call?
Nobody's supposed to.
Well, I called my girlfriend, who's an archaeologist. She's like, oh, absolutely, you gotta call the state and blah, blah, blah.
How do you get new girlfriends?
Put it in someone you don't like's yard.
They apparently got all this material from like a stone yard. The person on the tombstone was buried across town. This was like had a spelling typo on it or whatever. So that one threw us for a loop for a couple of days. Don't be verified. Look it up and like the records. Wayman.
So this is another group question. Who benefits the most from ADUs over the next 3 to 5 years? Is it investors, multi-generational, or first-time home buyers?
I believe that it's the college kids returning home that need a place to live and where they can live independently with their loved ones and stay in their home and not be in a nursing home. I know my mother-in-law's in a nursing home at the moment, and we got after Medicaid for 3 months was $32,000, and that was with Medicaid paying partial. So it's ridiculous. So being able to help them stay in their home with a place that they're comfortable with their loved ones and give them some independence, to me, I think that's one of the most beneficial things. And our kids don't have to move to New Hampshire to find a place that they can afford for their first home.
Unequivocally, that's who it is. Costs are too high and rates are too high for investors. The way I like to think about it, we benefit, our communities benefit. We've now unlocked places physically to put houses that help families and help communities.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. Definitely multi-generational. So having aging parents, also having kids in college, are kind of sandwiched in the middle, trying to help on both ends. And I think there are a lot of people that are in a similar situation. From the outside looking in, having a place for an aging parent to be and feel safe in their own home, and not have to look at nursing home or something else like that. But also for the younger generation, maybe you give them a place to stay that's separate and private, start their lives. Maybe not pay much in rent. I had one, so charge my kids a little bit of rent, but not charge much in rent so that they can build their nest egg to really go out and start on their own in the near future. Like I said, straight out of college, just someplace safe to be and not have crazy expensive overhead. So I think the multi-generational families, that's what's really helping.
I think that's where the greatest issue is. So, in one sentence, we're going to go rapid fire here. What is your best advice for somebody thinking about building an ADU?
Talk to somebody like us fast. And first, before you get too far into it, to make sure you can find out kind of the ballpark that you're going to be costing, where he's doing the modular build up and I'm doing a lot of conversion. It's like knowing what your price point and what it's going to cost you. Jacking up the floor to add a basement apartment isn't always the cheapest, but it's doable. But people think it's going to cost $10 sometimes.
Yeah, it's do your homework. The hardest thing right now, probably why you're all here, is like what is the information, and access to good information is hard to find. Not just pricing, but what are the rules in my town, what are the rules in the state, and what does the DCW want, and how do we get a 60,000 foot view where we can clearly understand what is possible, how much is it going to cost, and how can I pay for it. Early on, before you start paying the surveyor and architect designer, or going to town hall. Sometimes that's great. It's often the best first step, but it really depends on who you talk to and what day you talk to them on, and does that send you down a rabbit hole that maybe is
It's
unproductive.
bad information.
The health department.
It's not working in that direction.
What about you, Patrick?
So I'll say, definitely talk to experienced professionals. I mentioned it earlier, but I think one of the biggest issues is understanding the difference between an ADU and an in-law apartment. They're not the same. And when it comes to mortgage financing, there will definitely be some differences and some nuances. So make sure you actually have what you think you have. So make sure it's an ADU before you put all your money on the table banking that it's an ADU.
All right, so we've covered policy, finance, design, and law. And before we open the floor to more questions, did everybody put their business card in here? Anybody missing? Because I'm going to pull it now. All right. Do you want to do the... Chris Bernard.
All right.
All right.
You get the bar back.
Okay, so we're open to questions now. Anybody miss?
I'm wondering, like, we talked about things that can go wrong, but I mean, is there something that you guys have done to make it kind of what looked like a losing situation with ADUs into a winner, either with the town or through financing or through just a change in design?
I had one in Weymouth where Weymouth has a bylaw that you can't have your garage larger than your house. And with raised ranch, now you want to put a garage in and have an apartment over it, now you have a tricky situation. So what I did was actually drop the roof just enough that our sidewalls on our eaves are at 6 feet with our egress windows, sliders. And then by doing so, our kitchen wall was on one where we cut the back of our cabinets on the angle. And so it doesn't even look like it. We have 8-foot ceilings and the only place you really notice it's like in the bedroom a couple of feet. So we're able to match that low roof line pitch and get plenty of space. And the homeowners couldn't believe I actually did that.
Now, is that because you measure from where the ceiling starts down to the floor, and that's where you do the square
It can't be
footage?
higher than the highest ridge of the house.
Okay.
So my garage can't be higher than that.
Okay.
In some areas in Weymouth, if it's detached in a garage, it can't be over 21 feet high as well.
Right.
So we got an extra foot by keeping them attached and put a little breezeway in between, where it's basically just a 3-foot walkway with a roof over it.
Nice. And there was a question over here.
As far as the prices go, is it when you do an ADU, is it just the extra square foot? How much more can you kind of add to your property? So, investor buys a house that's going to flip, it's an old garage barn that's tapped, it's sitting there, it's prime use. You know, is it just extra square footage that can kind of increase the value, or do you see that? How does it compare to the
It's pretty much, yeah, it's pretty much just the extra square footage, but you're not getting the same value as a 2-family finished extra living unit. It's pretty much just a finished extra square footage.
That it's rentable.
Yeah, that you can rent. So
Yeah, I learn more from the real estate side. I'm going to sell it, not to even just a traditional buyer looking for a person with them.
So I think we're finding more of those buyers in the marketplace where in the past, someone buying a single family with an in-law was kind of a specialty market. Okay? Now I think that multi-generational living, and especially now with the ability to rent it out, you don't have to just tell town hall you're putting rent on there. But being able to rent it, it's a wider audience, it's a wider pool of potential buyers that will buy a home that has a second unit. So you may think that the value is somewhat suppressed because it's not a two family. But again, I think you could be putting yourself as a seller, you could be putting yourself in sort of a bidding war situation because it's a property that is now highly desirable, where in the past it used to be kind of unique.
We've had a lot of people call with that. It's like, hey, here's a scenario. We'll sell our house, we'll build an ADU, or we'll sell our house and we'll pay for that. That's the same set of circumstances, whether it's adult children.
So what, do you know if you have two principal buildings on one lot, how does that fit under? Would you be allowed two ADUs?
Yeah, it'll depend. It's like the town and the district, and what are they? Towns that are more progressive, going beyond the state here, and I sort of look outside of the state. Like Portland, Maine, will let you build more than one ADU.
Right, it's in the law, but it's no one's doing it.
Exactly, and that town I mentioned earlier, where condoize those things, they just do it by density. They say X percentage of square feet on your lot equals more than a unit. So it's based on your lot size. Not all, so many towns are not going to go there. So many towns are right there tooth and nail to even get to the state level. So, what town?
I've just seen them because I've seen a few that have two existing homes on one, so it's not a two family. It's literally two homes on one property. So the question in this one with three, do you now get three ADUs because they're all principal dwellings?
So it's the state rule. The question is, it's the state rule and what's the town rule. The state says in a single family residential district.
Right.
So it has to be in that. And then does the town come in and cap it 1-to-1 or 1-to-1 property?
Would that be a scenario where the zoning is grandfathered in
Right.
to the property?
It is. The predate zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The predate zoning, so you
Right.
legally have three homes on one property.
Yeah. Sounds like my family.
But then you'd be if it was a residential zone, then you're most likely, that's a non-conforming lot to have three primary dwellings on that. So chances are that's where they can get away and say, no, we don't have to let you have any, because you're technically a multifamily now. Multifamily doesn't have the same rights for the EDU.
Okay.
Or
Then
they,
that's on a town-to-town basis.
or they might zoom out and say it's one per property.
Yeah.
So, okay, I get it.
But is that is the law specific to that? Or you're saying it isn't, and then with zoning?
Yeah, the state comes in and says everybody has to allow it on the single family zone, single family, which this lot would have to be in that qualified.
It is in the single family.
And then you come in and say, hey, I'm potentially non-conforming because I have three, but they have to meet that state benchmark. So you likely can add the fourth, but I don't know if you can add 5 and 6.
So if you have the two, you could potentially get two.
Potentially.
Two pre-existing homes, not non-conforming, they predate zoning. So they're legally two.
Well, it can be legal and be non-conforming.
What's that?
It can be legal and be non-conforming, because now that the zoning law is there, you're considered a non-conforming lot.
Let's ask it different. They have two conforming single-family dwellings on one lot that meet zoning.
Then
You
yes.
get 1 or 2 ADUs.
I'm going to add to that only because this gets confused constantly. Is it an attached ADU or a detached ADU? Is it in the basement or is it a separate building?
Detached, I would.
And you're getting into setbacks, you're getting into, does it actually fit? If it all fits,
Meets our deal.
But it meets everything. It meets the accessory dwelling and accessory building use.
That you'd have to ask the town, ask whoever there's, your zoning enforcement officer, the building department, will be able to tell you whether they're going to allow that or not.
And I presented with the plan with 2 on it.
Right.
You know, say I have two.
Well, that's it. You establish first that they're there, that the there is there. Doing that through the research, and then once you've proven it predates zoning, then you have the 2 units on the one property. So we were talking about if you go to an 81L there, I thought you couldn't improve beyond that. If you do something like an 81L, are you entitled to a second unit?
I wish Mike was still here.
Oh, that's like he left.
So I would look beyond that and beyond what the building department says you can. What are you planning on for financing? Because you need financing. What are you planning on if you're looking to flip the property and sell it? Can the end buyer get financing? So you're putting together kind of an odd duck there, and I don't know. I mean, we'd have to sit down and talk through that. What you're planning, I think, is going to be very difficult for someone to be able to get any type of conventional financing on it. So you may have a great property, but if no one can finance it, what's it really worth? Not to burst your bubble.
No, I'm just
Playing devil's advocate. That's all. Yeah.
Can you build them with a 2 or 3K loan?
FHA, single family, yes, you can build an ADU with a 2 or 3K. And like I mentioned to you earlier, if you come to me with one of those, my goal would be to close the loan before you hate me. The amount of paperwork that's going to be involved. Right? So buckle up, Buttercup. That's going to be a tough one.
Do we have any 203K contractors in here? No?
Come on, Steve. Raise your hand.
Come on.
Raise your hand.
No? Alright. It's hard to find. Any other questions?
Who else?
So, alright. Alright. So, we have the pit over here on this side of the room. In the corner, I've got some post-it notes I'm going to put over there. Feel free to put your wants and haves over there. I have everybody's business cards, so I'll be putting them up on the boards for you tonight. I'd like to give a plug to a charity golf tournament I'm hosting with my charity 143 Gregory in August. If anybody wants to book a foursome, let me know. There's cards all over the place for it. And feel free to stick around and network and get some deals done.
I must say the panel was excellent.
Yes, thank you. It's the summer of ADUs, so the first Monday of every month we'll be sending out an email with